everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll get started in another minute or so, but while we're waiting, please feel free to drop in the chat and say hello. We've got our specialist speaker today, Rob, and your two hosts, Caroline, that's me, and Jim, that's him over there in the blue shirt.
That's me.
I know it's hard to tell us apart, but don't worry, you'll get used to it. Since we're talking about AI today, if there was one task that you thought AI could take over forever, what would that one task be? I think personally, it should be ordering lunch or maybe printer troubleshooting.
Michelle Jones says laundry. That's a good one.
Oh gosh, that's a great answer. Laundry 100%, the gift that keeps on giving. Oh, and deciding what's for dinner. Absolutely. No one ever warned me that that would be one of the decisions I'd make every day as a grown-up.
We got taxes. We got adulting.
While we've got everyone just popping in, let's see if we can get another poll on the screen. Anybody else have any great answers? So personally, I'm a millennial, and I can promise you that there are some people in here who think their employees aren't using it, who definitely are. How many people do you think are using AI in your workplace? Do you have any sort of inkling that maybe some of these people are using maybe to draft their emails? And just before we get started, I'm going to do a quick run through of what today's going to look like for you. My backup dancer, Jim, and I will be running a little bit of the discussion. And anytime that someone has a question, you just pop it into the chat. We'll make sure it gets asked. We're really excited to learn about AI with you today. And once we get started, Rob will present for about 15 minutes before we open it up for discussion and questions. Please feel free to raise your hand or put questions into the chat. We'll pause him and make him answer them no matter what, we promise.
Caroline, do you think we're ready to go with a few of these?
I think so, sir.
All right.
Just to get things started, one of my favorite things is fun facts. So I've given you 3 about AI. The first one is the term AI was coined before NASA, 2 years before. You have been using AI more than you think. It comes with your GPS, your Netflix recommendation, even fraud deduction with your bank. Those are all things that use AI nowadays. And one of the least fun things AI can do is called catastrophic forgetting, where it forgets everything you ever taught it before that exact moment. Just a couple AI fun facts. We're going to play one quick game of which AI is it? And then we can move on to our glorious guest speaker, Rob, for a little bit more educational purposes. Now, this icon may look familiar. You might know it, you might not. But the first clue is that it was publicly launched in 2022. Your second clue is it's probably already helped somebody write an email today, if not in the last 10 minutes since we opened this webinar. It can explain everything from quantum physics to how to properly break up with someone, and it hallucinates with perfect confidence sometimes. Did anybody guess that this is ChatGPT? It's all great friend until you ask it why your printer stopped working, and then it becomes some sort of hostage negotiator with your printer. Now, this one's a little bit harder. You've seen this icon before, but it probably doesn't pop up as something really well known. This AI tool asks you to identify buses, bicycles, crosswalk. It seems like maybe humans have more issues with it than robots do. It only exists because websites don't trust that you're not a robot. And one of its commands would be select all images containing traffic lights. Did anybody guess that this is CAPTCHA? CAPTCHA actually stands for Completely Automated Public Turing System Test to tell computers and humans apart. Now, Turing, I didn't know what that word was either. It's actually Alan Turing, and that's the guy who they made the Imitation Game off of, played by Benedict Cumberbatch. Pretty great movie if you haven't seen it, by the way. All right. The only other one we have left is one more game of AI, or if Rob would like to start, we can go ahead and jump to that.
Let's go ahead and get the topics going for everyone. What do you say?
You got it.
Awesome. Well, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on our first ever Clear Skies. We're excited that you're here, and hopefully we can share some stuff with you today that is valuable to you. Really, the idea is that you'll come away with something practical and something that you can immediately use. And really what we're trying to do is get people on their journey comfortable with that foundation that's going to take them deeper into what's next. I'm Rob. I work with businesses here in Central Florida, and our team internally has been using AI in the workplace for probably, I'd say, 2 full years. What do you think, Caroline, right at this point? Um,
Absolutely.
we've gotten even to some pretty deep workflows, but one of the things that we find out is people really need a place to start. And a lot of people are afraid to ask where to start. And there's some great tips and tricks that can get you on your journey quickly. So that's what today's really about. I want to start with just general prompt engineering and the concepts, because I'm sure you've heard it and it sounds fancy and all that, but what does it actually mean? What it comes down to is giving a role to play. You get better results simply by dictating what good looks like. I like to give people this kind of flow of using a role, a context, the task, the tone, and the output you're looking for. Or sometimes another way is the who, the situation, the task, the style, and the format. And so this is something you can take with you anywhere. But it's a lot better to present kind of who are you mimicking? Hey, I'm looking for the advice from a seasoned CPA who targets small businesses, and I'm looking for tax advice, right? That's a who. What's going on? I'm looking for ways to maximize retirement contributions for my employees and myself, right? I can talk about some of the foundation. What do you want? I want to find out some strategies to maximize how I can benefit both the company and my people. How should it sound? I'm looking for general advice that's understandable to a small business owner. And what's good look like? It's something I could probably take to my real CPA and get more feedback on and see what's practical. It's just kind of off the cuff. But the idea is that as you give more context, you're going to get a lot more of a better answer. So you start with write an email. It's very general, right? There's no context. You're not really saying what you're doing. Better would be act as a project manager, write to a construction client, explaining a 1 week delay. But even better would be if you gave it the entire email history for this particular construction client, and you could talk about what you're trying to explain. The vendors reported they now have the parts, scheduling crews next week. Another quick tip you'll notice at the end of this is feel free to ask 3 to 5 clarifying questions. What that will do is that'll actually tell the language model that if it thinks that it could use more context, to go ahead and ask. That will even give you more context because you're inviting the system to ask for more context. But I'll tell you, here's the problem with not giving enough context. This is something the staff did last week for fun. They took the image off of the company website and said, make it bolder. Of course, it turned into this. And I guess that's bolder, all right. But it kind of looks like it's a little all over the place. So, context and direction really matter, or else you could end up with absolute chaos or not what you expected. I still think this is pretty fun, but a little out there. Another way to think about this role to play is to go into a direct prompt, right? So, an example that I think will be meaningful to you. This is kind of what I call an alter ego named Bradley Pinkston. Reading resumes kind of can get a little bit unnerving and can get a little tiring. So, what we're going to do is throw this prompt in here. I'm just using ChatGPT for this example. ChatGPT is really good at your long-term memory, your life story, if you will, if you've had an account running a while. You know what, Caroline, you feel like we could throw your resume in here?
Please do. It's from
Oh,
2021. Rip it
is it?
apart, Bradley.
Okay.
Yes. Pray for me, everyone.
Putting on the Pinkston hat. There's something real here. Ooh, look, Caroline, there's something real there.
Go.
So repeated exposure to operational coordination. You've scheduled crews, process creation, and spreadsheet ownership. Not because Excel is impressive, but because she saw a mess, built a system, used it to track operations. Exposure to high friction environments. What feels vague, overstated, or weak? Ooh, tidy that up.
Yeah.
Someone hasn't updated their narrative in years. Uh-oh. Created a department, big claim, zero detail. But the cool thing is, right, the whole idea is we're going to go through this and it's going to give us some interview questions that are good follow-ups with this based on what it saw. So can give you some nice green light or red light answers based on just a track of thinking. And it kind of gives you some clever ideas, a nice way to get through some resumes with a different read and some way to do it. We can do another one too. I don't know if anybody want to see one more. We can put Dan on here. I got his permission. One of our guys. So again, you can see that this is a completely different role. This is somebody who's a technical role versus an administrative role, and it's still reading it. It's got enough of that what are we looking for and pulling a resume apart, but it's also looking for where that could fit in a company like ours. This is a great way to use a prompt, get it a role to play, and make your job easier, have less of that cognitive thinking. So I hope that was useful for someone. One of the hints we really want people to remember when they're starting their journey is treat AI like an intern. We come up with this buzz phrase that's become a thing around here when we start people on their journey. And you'd follow the same guide rails with an intern about a lot of things. First off, security. You probably wouldn't share your tax return, deep company secrets, or private information with your intern, especially on their first day. And the reason you really have to think that way and be strong about it is because your chat history is saved somewhere. It's saved in a third party system. And even if you check the box that, hey, maybe don't use it to train the model, that doesn't mean your data is not there. So this is something to be wary about because once you put that data in, you can't take it back. Just think about that when you're talking to these models. The other thing too is it really comes down to that same thing we're talking about with role playing, context, direction, and review. But I think people really miss the review part. When your first response comes back, typically you might want to push back a little bit or ask some more clarifying questions. You can either put it in your initial prompt or say, hey, I might disagree with that read. Here's what I was thinking. What are 3 to 5 questions that would help you have a better idea of what I'm asking for? Something like that. The other thing I would do is I would scrutinize your first responses, your early ones, because the way these chat sessions work is the longer you go back in your history, that whole history is part of the conversation. Matter of fact, every time you stay in the same chat, that full history, including the attachments, including whatever you had, is going back to the language model and back to you again. So you can see that if the conversation veers off course and you're letting it continue to go off course, you've got to correct that much more context. It's very important that you get the context and the direction of the conversation right as soon as possible. The other thing too is context can get long-winded. I don't know about you. Sometimes I get very excited deep diving through some ideas and topics. As a matter of fact, when we were talking about clear skies, you can see here how long this chat is taking to load just because I have so much context here. So, one of the tricks you can do to make your chat sessions faster, but still preserve your context is you can ask for something called a lossless export or a portable way of taking your conversation to a new chat. So you can literally say, this chat is getting long. Can you create a new chat setup for me? I can take into a new conversation. I'd like it to be lossless.
Can you define the term lossless prompt, Rob?
Sure. So let's back up a little bit about how language models work. The reason your prompt is giving you the output it is and why it's so important is the words are being returned are probabilities based on content. So anytime you've started to drive context inside of a chat session, what you've done is driven away from an average. You've driven towards a weighted set of words. And when you're asking for something to be lossless, you're trying to say, what context do I need to carry into a new chat session to remember all the nuance of that conversation so that when I start the conversation, I'm not talking to Dory again from Finding Nemo. So ChatGPT knows that I like to get stuff in Markdown a lot. So it might send me Markdown, which is basically text that has formatting in it. And you can see that's what it's doing now. It knows me too well. But it's even telling the chat window what this is. It's giving the context about the context reset. So here it is writing this giant text file that I can take into a new chat and I can continue this whole discussion. And ChatGPT basically is saying, look, if you put all this in, you won't lose any of the context that drove you to get here. So this helps because you'll start to see your conversations can get too much past context. And then you're stuck with slow load times. If you're using Claude, you're burning up a lot more tokens. If you're using deep thinking on ChatGPT on your Plus subscription, you can also use up more tokens. So cleaning up context is going to make your conversations faster, less messy, but it's also going to use less tokens. Does that make sense?
Yes. Would it also help with the confident hallucinations?
Yes, it can. And I think this is really closing the loop on this whole thing. Don't be afraid to push back because your language models are going to confidently answer because there's no real sense of right and wrong. It's just the average of words returned based on your prompt, right? So at the end of the day, pushing back is creating more context and should give less hallucinations. Matter of fact, if you do see a lot of hallucinations, you can literally tell the model, hey, I know what you're talking about right now. This concept here that you just brought up is not relevant at all. So again, you're kind of reshaping context constantly, right? And when you export or do your lossless export, that data should still be there. So those are, I think, some good starting points that people can take something with them right away.
I agree.
Should we do the poll results?
Yes, I would love to show people where they think they rank.
We'll start with the employees with AI because I think that's a fun one to do before we go into the next one.
I agree.
Looks like the majority of people said 47%. But what is the real stat, Caroline?
65 plus, y'all. Everybody's using AI.
Wow, that's crazy. And then what we'll do here is you wanted to bring up the comfort level poll.
Yes.
All right.
Our curious clicker, our AI partner, our power user, our architect, or our builders. I don't know how many builders we have on the call. I mean, I know Pav's listening in, so we might have just one, but I'm definitely over here on the curious clicker side, a level oneer. Where does everybody else think that they rank? Let's give everybody a couple minutes to check that out.
At this point, we're going to open it up. If anybody has any questions, feel free to type them in the chat or the Q&A. And we're planning on opening up the ability for people to talk and ask questions as well if they'd like.
Yeah, it looks like Julia has raised her hand.
Julia, feel free to type or chat, whichever you want.
Oh, she's
There we
typing a
go.
question out now.
Sure.
How
So,
can
I
we
mean,
help employees more comfortable using the tools? Any tips?
So interestingly enough, it really comes down to making it available. I'm not here to sell a tool or anything, but what I'll tell you that we've found is you want to pick one for your company or pick a framework that people can work in. So for some people, they started their journey in ChatGPT and they're comfortable training based on that. We also have the ability, and I'm cautious of sharing this because I'm not trying to turn this into any kind of sales thing, but I'm just showing some offerings that are out there. One of the tools we use with some of our customers is this Hats AI, and I'll share that for a second. What this does is this allows your whole company to have a flat fee per month, not based on user count, but it's based on how many tokens your company uses as a whole. And this can be a really comfortable way to start your journey because it's got stuff like model selection where you can say, hey, I don't know what model I want to use. So that the system can read the chats and decide what model to use. But what's also nice is you can start experimenting with different actual models, right? So if you turn the model selection off, you'll see in this tool you can experiment. I want to interact with ChatGPT. I want to interact with Claude on these particular things. There's multiple ways to do it. Some people have Ignite and they have a way of chatting already there. But at any rate, in a company of 50 people, you'll probably have 3 or 4 that are real daily hardcore users, and you'll probably have 2 superstars statistically. And then what'll happen is over time that'll grow slowly into more people as people start sharing workflows. I hope that helps, Julia. Does that answer your question?
I would also say just having them put in emails to have them be refined in ChatGPT just so they can see how it works. It's a really great way to get your toes wet for
Absolutely.
someone who's a little less technical, more on my side of the track than
Yeah.
Rob's.
There's a crawl, walk, run phase to it. And I think crawling and getting comfortable with it's really important.
I agree.
Any
Shall
other
we share
questions
the
out there?
result?
Yeah. Why not?
Looks like we've got a lot of curious clickers like me out there.
Very cool.
I think the more you get used to it, I know I'm working towards a level 2 myself, the easier it gets to teach the AI how to talk to you. I mean, I'm barely dipping my toes in a level 2 sector at this point.
So Reese
Uh,
asks, so I'm kind of curious, is there a specific example you're looking for? Prompt examples to narrow down queries? Like, is it like looking at data maybe?
just
Okay,
tips
just
on how to
folks.
make the prompts. Nice.
I would. So here's the funny thing. That's actually a great question. It sounds on the surface kind of like, what do you mean? How? But here's the thing. You can actually use your language models to help you generate prompts. As weird as that sounds. So this might be a construction example, but I'm looking to examine changes in plans from a revision from an architect. What are some prompt examples or thoughts I should have to look for things like what has changed in one revision to another? And you can ask, are there any other ideas you have to make this useful? and maybe give it more context for an electrical contractor, maybe, right? So your context will help. The more you can kind of paint the picture. So now it's given you some ideas on things you could do. So again, don't be afraid to ask the language model to help you write prompts. I think that's a thing that people don't experiment with enough is, do you have any ideas on this? Could you ask 3 to 5 questions that could help me get a better outcome?
Any other
All right.
questions? Don't be shy out there.
Yeah, we are opening this up for discussion, comments, printer related traumas, fun AI stories, or the weirdest way you've heard AI used. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion now.
I'll tell you too, the other thing is you start thinking of ideas that might help with what to potentially automate in your business as you go through using language models more and more, because it gets you familiar with the kind of questions to ask and the kind of guardrails or guide rails to put in place to get consistent answers or to get the answer you're looking for. And that can help because I believe that as we use really this tool more and more, it becomes a little easy for us to communicate with other people about what automated outcome or what example that we've proven a chat with some context is delivering and making something easier. I like to tell people where language models are great is in those low value activities, something that there's not a whole bunch of stakes if it's wrong. It's really kind of a mundane task, easy to review. Those are the best things to start out at. I mean, you could create a GPT or an automation that just says, hey, I want you to add up all of the line items in this invoice PDF I'm going to attach. And if they look like they're a part, give them this GL code. If they look like they're the labor, then give them this GL code, right? You can give some cognitive tasks and test with it and see what the outputs are like.
We have a question from David over at Live Trends asking, at what level of scale do we start worrying about our companies using too many tokens? What
Actually, great.
processes may contribute to the most of using up resources? Great questions.
So what I'll tell you is I'm more the mentality of allowing some experimentation first. I will say, I want to take this back a little bit. I do think it's important that companies pick a family to be in, whether that's ChatGPT, whether that's doing something like Hats, whether that's doing Claude. And the reason is that if all of your staff start using a whole bunch of different things, then when they're trying to share things with each other, you may be double or triple spending or losing some fundamental inertia that would come from people using the same system. And there's also a security aspect of it too, right? If you have Claude and you're not using Claude for Teams and you're just sharing things out into the open, you could be sharing something that's potentially not something you want to share, especially if you're linking those systems in the back end to something else. So first off, governance, I would try to start and pick a family for your business to work with. But you're asking, at what scale do we worry about tokens? What I'll say is it's going to depend on what they're using it for, because really it comes down to ROI, right? I mean, I can tell you that looking at those plans, that example I gave is based off of a real world example from a contractor we work with that builds hotels, and they get a lot of revisions, right, as they're doing the job. And they're not looking for the system to be perfect. They're just looking to not miss anything. That time that they get back to review plans that way and really focus on the differences is worth it to them, to where they've determined, I don't care if we spend $1,000 or $2,000 a month on plan reviews because we get so many of them, and it would be so costly for us to miss something in one of them that, spending $2,000 a month on that's fine. So I think it really depends on your use case. But I'll also say this, as companies grow and their use case gets more proven, that's a great reason to go back to somebody who works in AI stuff more to see if there's a way for them to consolidate what you're doing to where it doesn't take all that long context prompt. And maybe it can be turned into a web app that has all that context saved inside of whatever language model system you're using. So it's almost like I would encourage you to prove that something actually works first and has the value that's worth pursuing into maybe looking at another later stage of automation, working with somebody like us who does the AI to micro SaaS application stuff. Anytime you can prove a win, it's great. Processes that contribute to using the most resources are simply those with the most context. So if you're ever trying to make a video or you're trying to, look at a whole bunch of plans, I mean, those are things with a super large context. There's a lot of data there. So it definitely has to do with the size of your data. And also another one that I know eats up a lot is trying to make 3D renderings or anything of that kind. right? Some things that are light on resources might be making flowcharts and definitely just spitballing ideas for, like Caroline said, email follow-up. A lot of times I record a lot of meetings, in-person meetings I have with customers with their permission, of course. And we use that to go back to the sales process or talking about projects or things they want done. And it's just nice to not miss anything by having something else be able to read or go through all that transcription and text. Does
If
that help?
anyone in here is on the admin side of things, the other side of that is it can also give you Excel formulas. It can help you format Word documents. It can do all of the little things that are just annoying later when you've already done your admin work.
Anybody else have any questions? I have allowed everyone to talk, so anyone who wants to jump in. Oh, actually, Michelle Jones has unmuted herself. I don't know if she is trying to go ahead.
I think Rob can throw that cheat sheet prompt up on the screen. So make sure write it down because
Absolutely. I can
I
share
did
this
not-
as well.
I did not take
Email it over to you.
No.
I'll put it up again. You can take a screenshot and then we can also make sure that anybody who attended can get a copy of this. I'm assuming
Yes.
you're talking about this, how to get better results, kind of like
Yeah,
fundamentals
the
of
role,
prompting. Yep.
the context.
There you go.
Thank you. I'm gonna
Yeah,
put
no
that on
problem.
my computer. I'm gonna do better and asking because I'm one of those that just plays around with it. So
Well, I'll tell you the great
Real.
place to start. And then, like I say, also, I always like asking what 3 to 5 questions do you have to help me, give you more context. I combine it all. I like to do this and then right away just ask, what other questions have you got? And it tends to really dial in what you're really after.
awesome. Thank you for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope this has been valuable for everyone. We plan to do these every 2 weeks. It won't always be me sharing. We've got other folks here, and we even have some vendors we work with that are heavy in the automation space that I think are real valuable for people to get to meet. This is about using automation to get back your time, but also actually just knowing the basics. The more you get a foundation, the better you are at taking advantage of these things. And I think there's a thought process that comes with using it more. And that's the big win and takeaway.
Absolutely. We have enjoyed so much spending this time with you guys, and we know how fast AI is evolving every single day, and we're just happy to be learning with you guys. Thank you so much for your time.
If anybody wants to, feel free to reach out to us at communications@c9cg.com. And Caroline, I guess I'll let you take it away and wrap us up today.
Yeah, I don't have any more fun facts for you. I promise next time I'll come packing with at least 20 and it'll drive you all mad. We really appreciate everybody's time and we hope you have a great Tuesday. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, everyone. Take care.